no possible rational basis for any sort of legitimate federal judge to sign off on these kind of subpoenas. And yet it was done. And there's only one explanation for why:
Mhm.
partisanship. The
Mm.
political usage of government power to harm your enemies. And that must not be allowed to happen ever.
From the New York Post, Biden era FBI may have investigated over 160 Republicans as part of, quote, Arctic frost probe, documents show. More than 160 Republicans, including current Trump admin officials, may have been investigated by the FBI under former President Joe Biden as part of the Bureau's sweeping Arctic frost probe, documents show. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Dan Scavino, U.S. Pardon Attorney Ed Martin, and White House Trade Advisor Peter Navarro are among the prominent GOP figures named in FBI files released by the House Judiciary Committee on Tuesday, detailing the massive scope of the Biden-era Justice Department's investigation into allegations of the 2020 election interference. What we have learned is much broader, much more expansive than we ever thought. That was from Jim Jordan, the House Judiciary Committee chairman. So with that, we will be joined by Eric Teetsel. Again, he's the CEO of the Center for American Renewal. We're going to bring him in to see what he has to say about all of this. So, yeah, we'll get this fired up. We'll see what's going on here. I can do it. We have a producer Serge in the cut. He's twisting dials and making us sound all nice, which is great. We love that. Let me make sure. Oh, I need to put on this. Got to mash some buttons here. All right. Let's see. Hey, Eric, can you hear me?
Hey, Tate.
How's it going? All right. Well, before we start, could you just give a quick intro, who you are, what you do?
Yeah, my name's Eric Teetsel, and I'm the CEO of the Center for Renewing America.
Beautiful. I love it. Well, so I was leading in. I was reading about this Arctic frost probe. To me, this seems to be beyond Watergate levels of scandal. Obviously, Americans have been hit with a lot of crazy news over the last year. The news cycle has been absolutely absurd. So maybe the magnitude of what's going on here is lost on a few people. So maybe you could kind of give a quick rundown of why this is so monumental and scandalous.
There's a saying that's been running through my mind for a few years now. It's the idea that every accusation is a confession.
Mm,
And the accusations that we've heard thrown at President Trump, his administration, the entire conservative movement is that we're what? A threat to democracy, an
mm,
existential threat to this republic, right? And it turns out that the actual threat to democracy, the actual existential threat to our nation is coming from the side pointing fingers. It's coming from those who would weaponize the massive power of the White House, of the Department of Justice, and the federal court system and turn it against their political opponents for partisan advantage.
mhm.
That is exactly what we've just started to learn the details of with the release of these troves of documents from the House and Senate Judiciary Committees.
Right. I mean, it's just absolute insanity. So obviously the Biden era, team, this all initiated with an interest in the 2020, they say, quote, election interference narrative, and they wanted to investigate this. How did this start, and then how did this transform into just basically anyone that was right of center getting a magnifying glass put on them?
Yeah, that's right. Well, it started because President Biden instructed his Department of Justice, specifically Merrick Garland, Lisa Monaco, and eventually Jack Smith, this special prosecutor, to do just what you said, to investigate this quote unquote attempt at election interference. Right. And anytime you launch a federal investigation, we've seen this play run numerous times. People understand that once you have the predicate established, anything that you find becomes fair game, even if it's not illegal, even if there's no
Mhm.
wrongdoing. Anything you find while you're ruffling through somebody's underwear drawer suddenly can be part of a disclosure. It can be embarrassing to individuals who are involved. It can reveal tactics and strategies that are not illegal, but when brought to light, undermine the work that people are doing on behalf of clients or on behalf of ideological movements. And so, what's going on here is the use of federal power to destroy, it has to be said, to destroy the entire conservative movement. This
Mhm.
dragnet that was put into place by Jack Smith with the blessing of the President of the United States and the Attorney General of the United States, and with the assistance of federal judges like this Judge Boasberg, who has been in the news all throughout this administration for his attempts to use his power to stymie the Trump administration. By the way, the guy was a judge on the FISA court, these secretive courts that were
Mm.
allowed to spy and surveil on American citizens without any justification whatsoever, as we know from the Durham report and other information. These people perpetrated this dragnet, and it encompassed elected officials, including congressmen and senators. It encompassed the heads of organizations like Ed Corrigan and Mark Meadows. It
Mm.
encompassed attorneys for the president like Jeff Clark and John Eastman, um, all with the goal of digging up information so that they could either find or allege supposed crimes or simply just embarrass these people for a political advantage in the midst of an election year.
Mm. I mean, I saw in some of the discussion around it. I mean, like even like Turning Point USA was being effectively peered at by the Biden team. I mean, how expansive was this? Because we're seeing numbers thrown out. Obviously, there's a lot of pages in the document that were
Yeah.
released, but I don't know if people are quite aware of how expansive this operation was.
We're still learning. There are hundreds and hundreds of pages of documents that have been released. And by the way, I have a feeling there are many more documents still to come. It should be noted that the House released troves of documents with the assistance of the Trump Department of Justice. But the Senate side did it because of a whistleblower.
Hmm.
This is somebody from within DOJ who was willing to come forward, go to Senator Chuck Grassley, who's known to protect whistleblowers, and say, what happened here is wrong and you need to know. So more is certainly to come. But to your question, they literally threw out the widest possible net you could imagine. I mentioned elected officials. Apparently, it's hundreds of subpoenas that applied to dozens and dozens of individuals, leaders of organizations, lawyers. In some cases, people who, like, to your point, had nothing to do with anything even tangentially related to this. The
Right.
Center for Renewing America, for example, had not even commenced operations on January 6th, 2021. And yet
Gosh.
our banking records were subpoenaed. I mean, there is no possible rational basis for any sort of legitimate federal judge to sign off on these kind of subpoenas, and yet it was done, and there's only one explanation for why:
Hmm.
partisanship, the political usage of government power to harm your enemies, and that must not be allowed to happen
Mm.
ever.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's hilarious. You guys weren't even cooking yet, and they already came after you. I mean, that's insane. That's insane. My question would be, I mean, I was thumbing through the documents last night and this morning. I didn't see any expiration dates on there. What do you think they would have done if the last election went, a different way?
Oh, we know what they would have done because they're still doing it anyway to
Sure.
friends and colleagues of the movement. My friend and former colleague Jeff Clark, for example, has had his career ruined, his reputation tarnished, all because he gave legal advice to the president of
Mm.
the United States. And even though he has never been indicted because he didn't break any laws, the bar associations have gone after him in non legal means to try to bankrupt him and to ruin his professional career. This is what they are doing and what they will do if they are ever allowed to have power again.
Hmm.
I am tremendously grateful that President Trump won re-election in 2024. We should all be, because the limits that these people would have held themselves to when it came to the restraint of their power do not exist. People would have been in jail the way Steve Bannon was put in jail.
Mm.
People would have been bankrupted, lawfare. These organizations would have had private and privileged information about things like their donors released to the public, which would have been a massive violation of the privacy, not just of people like me who live and work in DC. And maybe you sort of say, well, you signed up for this game, but average everyday American citizens who write a check to some organization because they see it as an extension of their values, they should have their names and
Mm.
reputations pulled into this. It's absolutely un-American. It can't be allowed to stand based on what has already happened. And people need to remember this moment for the future because they're going to do it again if ever given the opportunity. There can be no doubt about that.
Hmm. Well, it's kind of the same sort of way of thinking following the assassination of Charlie Kirk, which is, look, the response needs to be so severe that this becomes unconscionable. Unconscious. That's the word I'm looking for. Unconscionable. You know what I'm trying
Yeah.
to say. It's a
Yeah.
Scrabble word
Yeah.
there. For leftist political violence to ever occur again. I mean, that's the type of environment you have to create. So, kind of similar to this, because this is scandalous at the highest level.
Mhm.
The Judiciary Committee, what options do they have here to ensure that these types of people are prevented from ever touching the weapons that would allow them to conduct this sort of operation again?
Great question. Well, sunlight is the first step and the most important disinfectant. So we're getting going, and that matters. I'm so grateful to you and other conservative alternative media that's covering this story because you're not going to find it in the pages of the
Mm,
Washington Post and the New York Times and the corporate media because these are their friends, their allies. In fact, they were active participants in perpetrating the same false narrative about what was happening with election interference and with the January 6th riots all throughout. So it's up to us to share this information and to tell this story and to make sure that people know. And we should do that because when average everyday Americans, people who don't necessarily pay attention to what's going on day in day out or who may feel overwhelmed as you alluded to earlier, Tate, with the sheer amount of news and information that's happening, it's hard to triage and know what's really massive and important and what's just kind of a passing story. We have to share and give people a sense of the magnitude of this. But
mhm.
then we also, to your point, need to expect Congress to take action. Here's an idea that's been thrown out that I think is dead on: impeach Judge Boasberg.
Mm.
As Ted Cruz said in the press conference that the Senate Judiciary Committee Republicans had yesterday, you have to have a factual evidentiary basis to subpoena somebody on these grounds. Or, as he also did, to submit a letter that said, hey, Verizon, not only are you supposed to give us all of this sitting US senator's cell phone information, but you can't tell him that you're doing it because we have a belief that he will destroy evidence if he knows about it.
Mm.
You can't just make those claims. It has to have a basis. Americans have rights, and privacy rights are one of them. And the amendments to the Constitution guarantee a protection from unreasonable search and seizure. That's exactly what happened here. This guy has been complicit in undermining the very roots of the American justice system and has no place in the federal judiciary. That'd be
Mm.
a great place to start.
Yeah, well, because this name, obviously, Judge Boasberg, has been, discussed at length by a lot of shot callers. He's been, whatever press is reporting on it, he's a centerpiece of a lot of these articles. Maybe you could frame specifically what his role was in this operation, because he's not a household name. I mean, because he's a loser primarily, but he's not like he's not a known quantity. I would say in the mainstream of the political zeitgeist. So maybe you could kind of frame what his role was in this operation.
Yeah, he's not a known quantity because he's not supposed to be.
Right.
Federal judges are not supposed to be part of the political process. It's a separate branch of government that should have no business playing partisan games. And
Mhm.
yet he has been in the news. And if you ask the average American to name a federal judge anything below the Supreme Court, he might be the one name they would know because of the repeated instances in which he has popped up as part of these partisan exercises, whether it was related to his work on the Fisk court, the FISA courts, this Jack Smith nonsense, or the federal injunctions he's placed on Trump administrative actions since the president was elected this year. This is a guy who was put on the federal bench initially by Barack Obama in about 2011, I believe.
Mm.
And in the last few years, he was elevated to chief judge of the federal district court for Washington, D.C. So he is the top federal judge for the region encompassing Washington, D.C. He's the guy who gets to make decisions like this. And he is the one who signed off on the subpoenas demanding privileged private information, phone records, banking information, employment records, and more from sitting U.S. senators, from congressmen, and from private organizations like ours, all without the necessary factual evidentiary basis that an objective judge would require in order to take such an extreme action, which, by the way, it's hard to imagine what that justification could possibly be given the stakes here,
Mm.
right? When you're talking about the appearance of injustice and the partisanship of the judiciary system, there should be an extra high barrier because the American people have to believe. They have to believe that the justice system is fair and blind. And even if you did have a reason, which didn't exist, to go after political opponents in an election year, you shouldn't do it because that's not who we are as a country.
Hmm. Absolutely. I mean, 'cause I'm reading here like former AG Merrick Garland, ex-assistant deputy attorney general Lisa Monaco, and former FBI director Christopher Wray all signed off on the investigation. I mean, I'm looking at this. This is beyond Watergate, obviously. As far as the sheer like volume of people targeted. Is this prosecutable? I mean, surely, right?
We'll find out. We'll find out exactly what happened. There are certainly the possibility that things were done that are unacceptable and potentially illegal. If you lie to a judge, um, that's a crime.
Right.
And at the very least, it's grounds for disbarment. If you are known to have committed, a criminal conspiracy, that's a crime and
Hmm.
certainly something that could be punishable in various ways. For us at CRA, I know we're taking a long, hard look at this, and there are both criminal and civil routes that you can take in response to an action like this, all of which I think need to be on the table, in addition to the most important step, which you're helping us with, which is building public awareness so that we never see this happen again.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, because I'm just seeing this, and it's funny because obviously the probe was into election interference, sort of this narrative that was spun. This to me looks like election interference. They're trying to take out an entire apparatus of a political movement right before an election. I mean, like, what are we doing here?
I mean, look, people need to remember Donald Trump won re-election after being indicted at the federal and state level like dozens of times.
Yeah,
His opponent for president of the United States allowed his Department of Justice to pursue federal criminal investigations during an election year.
yeah,
This is banana republic nonsense. If the blob at the State Department saw this happening in some far-flung place around the world,
yeah,
they would declare that the election was rigged and unfair. And yet it's happening right here underneath our noses. Thank God the president won anyway, and that's due to the wisdom of the American people. Average everyday people who can sniff something that's wrong, that's illegitimate, that what they don't even care about. I mean, classified information being stored in the wrong room at Mar-a-Lago, no one cares.
hmm,
It's not a big deal. And oh, by the way, they also noticed when Joe Biden was doing the same thing in his garage in Delaware,
yeah,
and yet nothing flows from it. There's only one explanation for this, and it's that the partisanship runs in one direction.
hmm.
It's used to harm your political opponents, and it's wrong, but it's not going to stop them from doing it again. They will avail themselves of these tools if they get the opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, I think that could explain part of the reason that people aren't sort of grasping. I mean, a lot of people are, a lot of political people that are politically aware, people that are in this space, obviously, but still, I think for the reason for why a lot of people haven't quite grasped the magnitude is because it's not surprising. It's shocking for sure, but it's
Mhm.
not surprising. Like no one has a hard time believing. Like when Watergate occurred, obviously the entire narrative was like, "This is so scandalous. Like, how could this possibly occur? Like, this is just so dirty, et cetera, et cetera." That was the
Yeah.
reaction to the news. Versus this, I think the entire right was like, "Yeah, that kind of checks out. That's how the Biden administration conducts things." I mean, they're obviously shocked at the way it was done, but there's something to be said about that.
You're right. It's a sad indictment of where we've come as a country, and it explains, I think, the power and the importance of this president in this political moment. There's a reason why the tagline, Make America Great Again, to renew America, has caught on with people because they have the same sense you do. This isn't who we are. We
Mhm.
should be better than this. And if it wasn't clear because of the abuse of power through DOJ and these scam investigations, then it's clear because they tried to assassinate the president at a political rally. Then it
Mhm.
should be clear because they did assassinate our friend and hero, Charlie Kirk.
Mhm.
This cannot stand. And we have reached the precipice where we have to make a choice as a nation. Are we going to do what is necessary to take the steps back, to take the country back, and to ensure that political violence and the weaponization of the government against political enemies stops forever?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. That's just, we had to set the tone here. I mean, because I think,
Yeah.
to be fair to a lot of the base, they're frustrated with Congress. They feel like there's a lot of inaction. So I think a lot of people here, sadly, are expecting the ball to be dropped. But this second term Trump led GOP does seem to have some teeth, and I don't anticipate that Grassley and the squad are just gonna like let this slide. Um, but beyond that, I was kind of curious because you're obviously Center for American Renewal. You guys are doing excellent work. You're a well-connected guy. What was sort of the reaction from a lot of people when the list came out of who was investigated? What was the reaction from some of those people that were on the list? Because it was such a like not random, but it was such a wide net, like you said.
Honestly, the first reaction was, if you weren't on the list, what's wrong with you? What were you
Yeah,
doing?
yeah. That means you made it.
It means you made it. Yeah,
Yeah,
when you're over the target, that's when you're catching flack, right? And
yeah.
so, at the one sense, it's like, well, hey, at least they identified that. Yeah, we are movers and shakers. We are the
Hmm.
people who matter and are in the fight, and that's why they're shooting back at us. Of course, we're fighting in legal ways, in ways that are perfectly appropriate, and is in fact essential to a democratic republic running. You need to have a vibrant democratic process, and that's what we do for a living. But then, of course, it's just the absolute outrage because we love America,
Hmm.
we love this system, and we know it can be better. And it is such a deep violation of the most basic democratic and constitutional norms.
Hmm.
This is not who we are. We've got to be better than this. And it has energized the movement to fight and to fight to make America great again, to fight to renew a sense of America as a nation under God, with institutions and with people and with histories that are worthy of protecting. Right. And so that's what we're going to do. I've been in this town for a long time. Nobody has a lower opinion of Congress than me. But the truth is, there are heroes there. There are good people working. Heck, there are people who have let us down that we can expect to at least come through this time. We
Hmm.
will hold their feet to the fire. We will make sure that we continue to make progress on this front because we have to. It's an existential threat.
Yeah. I'm glad you hit on that point of, what would motivate sort of the Biden team to sort of conduct this sort of operation. Because I think this is really important. And I think this also applies to the increase in political violence we're seeing from the left is you don't really start, conducting affairs like this, or you don't start attacking people unless you feel like you're losing. Like vindictive would be an accurate adjective, obviously, to apply to this. That's certainly the case. But I think fear would actually be because they're so afraid of their entire project getting unraveled before their very eyes by how dynamic and powerful the MAGA sort of movement is. And I don't think you conduct something like this unless you're like genuinely concerned that we're gonna lose power. We've lost the American people. They're not riding with us anymore. To me that
Yep.
seems to be
Yep.
why they would conduct something like this.
Yeah, the fear of losing power, and the willingness to do whatever it takes to protect it and preserve it. And we have seen the weaponization of government in lots of other places in lots of other ways over the years in that exact same vein, right?
Hmm.
We saw the IRS release the tax information of conservative groups way back when Lois Lerner was there under President Obama. We saw the FBI going after everyday moms and dads who are
Mm,
going to school board meetings to question the transing of their kids. Recently, my organization, the Center for Renewing America, has revealed the ways that the Biden administration and the federal bureaucrats who run the Census Bureau weaponize the 2020 census for
mm,
political
yeah.
advantage. That is only now coming to light. And we're doing a lot of work to try to undo that. Sadly, it turns out that you just can't trust folks to constrain themselves and to operate according to the rules that this system needs in order to operate. We've got to recover that. We've got to take it back. And until we do, until the American people have a deep sense that it doesn't matter what party you're a part of, you're a person who's going to respect the law and the Constitution and what it means to be an American, think twice before giving power back
Yeah.
to the progressive movement.
Absolutely, man. Well, I don't know. Final kind of sort of closing thought, and relating to this Arctic frost, investigation. What would you say to people? What do they need to keep an eye on? What sort of things will be revealed here that people should be looking out for?
Yeah, we got to know exactly what information actually went to Jack Smith. That's one
Hmm.
thing to know. For example, for my organization, we know there was a subpoena to the company that did our payroll records. What we don't know yet is whether they complied with that subpoena.
Mm.
So there are some open questions there that we need to know. We need to know who else was involved, the extent of this. Do we even know fully how many subpoenas went out, what information was given, how that information was then used and weaponized in the political prosecution of the president of the United States and aides like Jeff Clark, John Eastman, and others? There are a lot of unknown questions. And of course, we need to bring these people in front of Congress to testify under oath and tell us the truth about what motivated them, who told them to do what they were doing, who funded what they were doing,
Mm. Yeah.
and more.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Eric, thank you so much for taking the time to come on here and break this down. Where can people find you and your organization?
Tate, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah.
You can find us americarenewing.com. We're all over the socials on X, on Instagram, America Renewing Center. I'm on X at Eric Teetsel, and we'll be covering this really, really closely for the days, weeks, and months to come.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much, Eric. Until next time.
Thanks, man.
All right. Well, that was Eric. Man, that was a great breakdown. Because that's the thing with this story. There's so many moving parts to it. Obviously, all these documents that got dropped. It's hard to like really frame it. It's hard to get your your paws on it and really try to figure out what's going on here. This is, I mean, this is Watergate level stuff. This is insane, and it's gonna get lost in the fray because the media is just full blown defense for the Biden admin. Absolutely ridiculous. I'm looking forward to seeing what more can be revealed here because, yeah, the amount of people that were investigated is absolutely ridiculous, and they were fully intending on interfering with the 2024 election. There's no question about it. So, great stuff. We will be back tonight for Timcast IRL at 8 p.m. You do not want to miss it. It's gonna be a great show. You can find me, your host Tate Brown, on X and Instagram at Real Tate Brown. Come give me a follow. And also, go get your Culture War Live tickets. It's on the 8th of November. We got Alex Stein, Emily Saves America, Myron Gaines. We got Brian Shapiro. It's going to be a monster show. Head on over, grab your tickets, hang out tonight, Timcast IRL. It's going to be really fantastic stuff. So, with that, thank you very much for watching and hanging out, and we will see you all next time. Thanks.